Can you hear me, Daniel and Marcus? Okay, you're muted, but we're live here already. So if I unmute you, you're still live. And Marcus, just say something to see if we hear you.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Daniel?
I am not where Marcus is, but I am also somewhere.
Awesome. Okay, we're all live, so be careful, behave. And we should start very soon. I hear Kyle is coming.
Yes, be looking for him. He should be here pretty soon.
Fantastic. And we have our two other reps here that are coming from here. So it should be awesome. And Daniel, you're the man. You got so much news. Everybody's talking about Texas.
Oh my God. Wow.
People literally at PORCFEST are asking me what's going on there. So it's good.
Well, if they were here, they would know.
What's that?
If they were here, they would know.
They were there, they wouldn't be here.
We miss you all. All of you.
We miss you.
Gang's all here.
There we go.
Very beginning. So where's that? Just bring me the flag.
Congratulations, Daniel.
And I appreciate that. It's not me. It's a team effort. Man, I got to tell you, our volunteers swarmed that place. It was just a feat to behold.
I'm definitely going to make a statement that you know, when any of us do something on secession, we all win. When
Daniel, I don't know if you met Mike. Did you meet Mike Sylvia?
I didn't, but I'm just sitting here marveling at Elliot dressing for the job he wants, not the job he has.
We got to get you guys louder.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Gonna make you Texas loud.
Make it big.
See you guys.
You say that, but you don't know how this is going to go.
Oh, I know, cowboy.
Yeah, I got a mute button, man. I don't know.
Oh, they tested one. Alexa, all the mics are on? Working? Did you hear me loud enough?
Do you think man's gonna turn the other one?
That's what the said? Yeah, you said I'll try to get it.
Oh, he's not gonna. I want you. All right.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Okay, because we want Mike up there. I want Mike up.
I think you got a couple new recruits. I have to say, I believe that you should do whatever you want in Texas, but there must be child labor laws, correct?
I didn't hear myself.
It's up to you. It's however you want it to be. But you seem to have a couple little Texans, little baby Texans running around in the background.
I just put that up. I put that up to annoy people during Zoom calls. I just grabbed it from that BBC interview. So.
Yeah. Here,
I'm going to put some more volume. Put you guys in the speakers a little bit more. See if I can hear y'all. Okay, I think we should be good.
Everybody behave because everybody hears you.
So,
you know, you said that like 4 times since we've been on here. What?
That's because of Marcus, not because of you.
Either way.
I'm talking to
Hang on. Let's get super meta. Hang on. Let's take a picture of Marcus taking a picture of us.
Yeah, hold on.
There we
That's a
go.
good idea. Okay.
So that's question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's definitely a sign of the times. That is definitely a sign of the times.
What's that? I'm pretty good.
Thank you so much, man.
Ready to go. Bernie?
Mike, give me 1 sec. Say hi. Daniel, that's Mike.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Ready, that's it. Marcus. Marcus, say hi.
Hey, Marcus.
Mike, it's good to see you again, sir. Good to see you.
Advertising, right?
Yeah, as advertised. Yes.
All right.
Good to see you. What's up, guys?
I still want to interview Biederman if there's any chance.
He should be here probably in about 4 minutes or so. But yeah, he'd be up to it.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, you know, I'm going to say this, that it's something I said last time when we had the conference, which is that whenever any of us gets in the news with secession, we all win. So there's a lot of articles today about Texas secession, and 2 of those articles go, by the way, there was also a thing called Calexit. So we got back in the news because you got in the news.
The insert rising tide cliche here, but it is true. The bottom line is, and this is something Naylor and I talked about so many years ago, is that if we can help the overall issue of self-determination, we all win, right? It gives us all an opportunity. So it's just part of the thing, man. I'm glad we were able to hopefully sink the 8 ball on this thing. I mean, look, if Newsweek is jamming 4 and 5 articles out a day trying to scare people, I think we did the right thing.
As we've said here in Calexit, whenever they write threatening articles, you're doing something right.
Guys, you're stealing the whole show.
We didn't start yet.
We have nothing to say.
We're gonna start 2 minutes.
Well, you should have thought about that before you put the leaders of 2 organizations on a Zoom call, and we haven't spoken in forever, and then invited us 15 minutes early.
I should have thought of a lot of things, like staying in bed this morning.
Was that an option? Because somebody did not. Was that an option? Because I did not get the memo.
No, I woke up at 5 to drive here. Laser got here at 5:30 this morning. We're hoping he shows up.
Of course he did. Laser lives in Ukraine, Russia, Greece, China, Japan at the same time.
You forgot
like
Slovenia, Czechoslovakia.
His son travels all over the world. His son Laser is literally like, I think he's like James Bond, but I don't know.
It's got that vibe.
Dude's like, I'm in Slovenia. This week I'm in China. Next week I'm in Ukraine. Next week I'm in. Like, why are you in all these different places? I guess I like to travel. Whatever. I like to travel, but not that much. Yeah, unfortunately, if we can't talk about secession, the only thing I'm really prepared to talk about is the new Batman and comparing the current Batman to Christian Bale. I'll give you a sneak peek. I am a Christian Bale man.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at. I don't know if you're a big fan of the new Batman, but we would disagree if you are.
Yeah, I am a fan of all things the Bat. So each can be enjoyed in its own individual way.
Wow, you are ready to be president of the independent nation of Texas. That was, when asked the question on Batman, here you go. We can't tell where the president stands. Is he pro new Batman? Oh, you're ready.
But you have to admit, the story was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm just so proud of you guys. I mean, you did it. You got back in the news again today, this week. You've really been pushing it. You've been at it for a while. And we have been talking about routinely how you've had, I mean, we constantly bring up that you have to go back to 1861 to find this many elected officials.
Okay, if I can interrupt California and Texas. It is 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, New Hampshire. Want to make sure I'm in the right place. Is anybody here in favor of independence? Okay. I'm in the right place. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Stephen Axel. For those of you who do know me, my name is Stephen Axel. Very honored to be here today. I was here last year. I hope nobody remembers me because I'm going to say the exact same thing. I'm the founder of an organization called Americans United for Peaceful Separation. And under that rubric, I'm super proud. You can see on your screen the head of Texit, who was here in person last year, who I'm sure you remember, and the head of Calexit, and we will get to them very, very shortly. I am also, believe it or not, the vice president of Calexit, even though I'm not a liberal. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And I'm also a board member of the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence, of which I'm also proud, and we'll get back to that in a few minutes. As everybody knows, this has been a great year for independence. And the reason it's been a great year for independence is because New Hampshire has a couple of state reps who have more, how should I put this? I was going to say male body parts, but I'll get in trouble for being stuck in the binary. So they have more, whatever it takes, backbone. Okay, everybody, even cisgenders, whatever, can have backbones. And I want to recognize here with everybody, Mike Sylvia and Matt S., if I pronounce his last name.
Sant'Anastaso.
Sant'Anastaso. Matt, could you come up here for 1 minute? I want everybody to please give a standing ovation to these two superheroes for what they did last year. Stand up, stand up. All right, come on over.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
It says, this is presented to New Hampshire State Representative Mike Sylvia in recognition of his courage and tireless efforts as the sponsor of CACR 32 in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, presented at the PORCFEST Porcupine Freedom Festival, and it's a super honor for me to give this to Mike, and it's got on the bottom of it, Texas, New Hampshire, and yes, California. You're the man. Similar one for superhero number 2, but not number 2 in any other reason. To Matt Sant'Anastaso for also having the unbelievable courage and working so hard to sponsor these guys. Take a picture if anybody's taking a picture.
Oh, yeah, it'll be, we also have to think about all of the sponsors, yeah, at least one, I think, like, you stand up and think about Mr. Glenn Bailey was a great sponsor.
Yes.
And any other revenue sponsor that voted in favor of it, tremendous thank you, amazing honor to know you guys, that's our heroes.
In the interest, is this still on? Is this on? Is this on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, in the interest of respect, we have another super special guest here, so I'm going to veer off the perfect timing of this program. Since I do not recognize the fourth square, I am assuming that is Texas State Representative Kyle Biederman, am I correct? So Daniel, could you do me a favor, and before your whole speech, just introduce Mr. Biederman, tell everybody what he did so we can thank him as well.
Sure. I can tell you that just like the state reps there in New Hampshire, here in Texas, it's super rare for us to have elected officials that have integrity, that have character, that have courage, all wrapped into one. Someone who is ready to go in and fight the toughest fights and charge the gates of hell with a squirt pistol if necessary. And so after many sessions of shopping the Texas Independence Referendum Act, there was one state representative that had the courage, the character, the consistency to file it. And that is none other than the gentleman who is here with us today, a modern day Texas hero, State Representative Kyle Biederman.
Thank you, Daniel. Am I on, or can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, I just, it's hard for having somebody say such nice things about you for doing what's right for our country and what's right for our state. And so thank you, Daniel. And it's amazing to be in front of you all in New Hampshire and not thinking about New Hampshire the same way we think of Texas, but you guys were there before us. And you guys had to fight in the beginning for our independence from Britain. So we followed that up with the Alamo and of course San Jacinto. We won our independence on our own from Mexico. But then look where we are right now. So I am so grateful that I'm not alone in this fight to take back our country. And if we can't take our country back, then we shouldn't be part of that country. And we're talking about the government of the United States. We're not talking about America. We're all Americans. We've all been Americans, even before we had our independence from Britain. We were called America, and we were Americans, and we're still Americans. And those people that say that you're anti-American for being for Texit, that's because they're just ignorant. They don't have any idea. They've lost that spirit of freedom and liberty that we've shed blood for over 200 years. So I'm really grateful to be in company with you all. Stand strong. Your other legislators are probably not going to be too afraid to support you right up front. But things happen in New Hampshire that we can't even do in Texas. So I'm going to be praying for you guys and praying for your legislature to have the courage to really stand up to what's happening in this country and what this government is doing to every one of our states. We've just given up the rights of our states that we've had in our 10th Amendment. And fortunately, our founding fathers gave us the opportunity to make changes if we need to by putting the authority into states and also into individuals. And so if we have to go in on our own, we're just going to have to go in on our own. But the rest of the country, when I came out with Texit and the legislature and the bill that we put forth, thank you to TNM and Daniel Miller and his group, I got calls from all over the country. I got calls from all over the world calling me, thanking me. So you all are in great company. People are all behind you, because if the people don't stand up, this country's gone, because our leaders are so weak, and they have no ability to do what's right anymore. So it's going to be the people that have to stand up, and we need the legislators that have the guts to give the people a voice. So thank you very much.
I'll just make this brief. It's nice that we're all of us. We're all together. We're not out here fighting alone. We kind of take the point and put these ideas forward, but it's really backed up by the folks like you right out here in the audience, and many thousands more that support the ideas and are tired of same old stuff coming out of DC. The government we have in DC is not the government of the Constitution, and we need to do everything we can to encourage them to get back to it or say goodbye. So I want to thank you folks who have been working on this for even longer than I am. Just kind of a newcomer to it, but willing to step up there and be part of it. So I thank you to everyone that's come before me and got this thing rolling. Thank you.
And now, everyone, Stephen has a little dance number worked up for everyone.
Daniel, I have a mute button.
I recall.
If nothing else happens today, I am super, super happy. It was worth waking up at 5 o'clock and driving 6 hours to see the state legislators from 2 different states who both work towards an almost impossible goal and finally get to meet and talk to each other. And hopefully that's going to influence some California legislators to do the same. Okay, we're going to move on for a minute. Lots of other good things have happened this year. A gentleman who I've known for a very, very long time became the president of the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence. He's sitting here next to me. He's the founder of Liberty Block, Elliot Axelman, and I will let him take a few minutes to tell you the good stuff that he's been doing for FNHI.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introductions. Thank you. Thank you so much for the meeting. Mr. Peterman, Mike Sylvia, Matt Sasso, and all the other sponsors, and Marcus and Daniel, and thanks to my father. So I'm the president of the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence. I'm extremely proud to serve on the board with a bunch of other people here for attendance. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that seeks to educate people about the benefits of New Hampshire independence from the Union. And yes, we filed that with the feds in the state, and that's our mission statement, and they, for some reason, approved us as an organization, which is great. The foundation is currently commissioning a survey. The check went out the day I left PORCFEST a few days ago, yesterday morning, for a survey that will be the first one ever in New Hampshire, done by Survey USA. It'll be an official poll on whether the people of New Hampshire, random citizens, support independence. And hopefully in a few weeks, we'll have the result of that poll. And that'll be part of a bigger 8-state poll, including Texas and a bunch of other states. So we can see how many people in New Hampshire support independence. Now, I'm sure the legislators here, Mike Sylvia, and the others will speak more to the legislation we had, CACR 32. But I'm extremely excited. We had initially 9 state reps, including some leadership sponsor legislation, and ultimately 13 voted against the table motion. So we have 13 reps support it. And I've heard from dozens of others, almost 100 others, saying they support it and that they couldn't politically live with voting yes and take the political repercussions, which I understand. But a lot of people did not have the courage to vote yes on that legislation because they were under the impression that the opposition put into their minds that there were serious chances that they could be charged with treason or insurrection or rebellion and actually go to prison. Now that it'll be almost a year since that happened, and none of them have obviously had charges filed against them, and those convicted. They're all totally fine. Like Sylvia, you're not in prison, you're not being charged. Yeah, they're all doing just fine. Like Sylvia looks as great as ever. I think the other dozens will be empowered to vote yes next year if we have similar legislation. And I'll let Mike speak to more legislation, but I'm thinking we might propose a constitutional amendment again. Also, maybe a simple bill, also maybe a study commission bill, and maybe even a just a simple resolution. And I know Matt also said he has some interesting ideas about that as well. So I'm extremely excited for next year, but also even more important than that, the fact that we might have another 100 reps vote for it now that they know that they're not going to go to prison. DC politicians every day are doing more things to convince us that secession is reasonable. I've heard from countless people. I spoke to another author a few nights ago at work. I called him, he's from California, and he wrote a book. And he said he had an interesting idea about how to solve the division, the increasing polarity in this country years ago. And I called him again to talk about his book, because it was a really good book. And he's like, oh, forget that, secessions are only fair now. So a lot of people are coming around. Tons of people are coming around for secession. So I'll let Matt introduce himself, Matt Sabor as well. Another interesting thing that's extremely exciting about New Hampshire that Matt will tell you about is a few weeks ago, probably like 2 weeks ago, we launched a PAC. So now if people want to donate to the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence, it's tax deductible, and they can donate to the foundation, which I work with. But we can't spend direct money, we can't give money to Sylvia. That's not primarily what we do. We educate broadly with surveys and with literature. Whereas if you want to donate directly to the legislators or direct action for legislation, you can donate to the PAC that is not tax deductible, but it can go right to legislators and legislation, so direct on independence. And I'll let Matt Sabor introduce himself and tell you about the PAC and maybe help.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. My last name is actually a little bit longer than that. It is Matt Sabor and Dishwania, the French sound last name. Nice to meet you all. I moved to New Hampshire last year, got really involved with the Free State Project. We have recently started the New Hampshire Independence PAC, whose mission is, of course, to support legislators and legislation pushing through for the end goal of New Hampshire independence. So we have a very We had a first roll call vote this past spring for CACF 32. We had 13 votes, one for each of the 13 colonies, and hope to have more next year as well. Our website is up, mypac.org. That's where we are accepting donations as well. We've been challenged by a local representative running for Congress to try and raise 10 grand. We're already a quarter of the way. We proudly accept any sort of donations that you wish to contribute. Say hi.
Greetings, pleasure to be here and pleasure to really serve the people, folks right out there. It's not especially sort of establishment. It's a great day. It's good to see that we have so many people interested in attendance, and we're looking for all the great ideas to come with our next session. I've got a little bit of a hurdle in the primary challenge, but I think we can get past that. But I think working together, we've got a lot of great candidates. The establishment seems to push people away, and the folks at Reopen that were fighting against all of the medical tyranny, they inspired a lot of people. The governor had a bunch of people arrested for saying amen, and that has inspired another group. So every time the tyranny gets notched up, the folks out there in the public get more motivated, and that's what we need. We need, apparently we need tyranny to realize how good we have had it, and it's time to turn it around and do the hard work to restore liberty and do it peacefully this time. We often don't think of the Second American Revolution. There was a peaceful revolution when the Articles of Confederation were overthrown and replaced with the U.S. Constitution. That was a revolution, and nobody really thinks of it that way. But it was peaceful, so it can be done again. And I think there are many states, as we see, that are thinking about this central control, looking at it, knowing that it is not what was planned for us. So it's time to turn it around, get everybody's attention. We're doing it more and more. The ball is rolling, and we'll run with it. We'll have more and better.
Thanks. Laser.
Mike.
Look.
Mike. Sorry, Stephen.
Yeah, we got two paramedics here.
Yeah. Yeah, we know.
Wait, down to get lunches.
Yep. We're going to shots. What are we doing? We're just going to You okay? Yeah.
Yes, give it a minute. Good news is that Alu works in health and
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Well, I just can't believe that.
Just take it.
Yeah, I was. Wow, this. Oh my gosh. No, I did not. No. Yes, I have, but I thought these on the lots. Thank you so much.
Sure. You know what, let's put his legs up on the chair.
Yeah.
So, oh, listen to you, take a deep breath.
Thank you so much.
Let me know if we need to call an ambulance, please.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Rotate yourself, rotate yourself,
Moving in.
and put your legs up here. Right there. There you go. Good. You want to do your arm?
No, I don't. Hands still not. Oh my gosh.
No. Daniel and Marcus, you know that somebody fainted, right?
Yeah. Are they okay?
I don't travel without 2 paramedics.
All right, so they just fainted and they got proper medical attention. That's good. Nice belt buckle, by the way, I have to say, Rabbi, that's an impressive piece of hardware you got there. While we have a minute, Kyle, I would love to interview you sometime if you're ever open to that. I've done some interviews with other secession leaders. I also interviewed Mike Sylvia and obviously the rabbi. I also interviewed F.A. Buckley, who wrote a book on secession recently. So is it okay if I email you?
Folks, we're going to continue the program while the medics and doctors and whoever else is working on this gentleman. Lots and lots have been going on in Texas over the last week. Our friend Daniel, who was supposed to be here today in person, was busy tearing up Texas at their Republican state convention, and lots of things happened. So Daniel, I'm going to turn over to you to tell us all the cool news.
He's on mute. He's on mute.
I did that. Look at that.
Now we can hear you.
Check for the win. Well, what, Marcus, are you criticizing my mime skills? Because that's what I'm hearing.
No.
Look, yeah. So, I mean, obviously the last 48 hours have been a bit, I don't know, how can we say this, hectic, exciting, whatever it is. When Newsweek is pumping out 4 articles telling us how it's horrible that we're doing it and that the government will murder us if we try, just to scare people for voting improperly. I think we're doing a good job. But for those who don't know, essentially what has happened is we started way back when. I think the last time I was with you guys a year ago, we had just launched our petition effort, which, you know, not to go into a bunch of redux, but we don't have true initiative and referendum here in Texas, but there's one narrow exception. And we were going to ride that out. So we rode that in through the election. We fielded a ton of candidates, but in addition to that, one of the things that we began to do throughout the primary season, obviously, other than identifying supporters, was start gearing up delegates that were going to be delegates to the Republican convention. And some people may ask, why the Republican convention? Well, the Republican Party is the dominant political party here in Texas. Their state convention is literally the single largest political convention in the world, with over 9,000 delegates. So, I mean, it's a pretty massive convention. So, this was something that we wanted to do to effectively piggyback off of the floor fight that we had in 2016 to add a plank, at least respecting the right for Texans to vote on it. Something that we got through in 2020 with about 93% support. We wanted clarifying language on the existing plank, but more than that, what we wanted a very explicit call for the legislature to put it to the vote, to put independence to a vote of the people, right? It's what we wanted. We wanted our rights under Article 1, Section 2 respected, and we wanted the dominant political party in Texas to essentially make that an official part of their platform. And through a lot of tireless effort, not my work alone, but a massive team of people, volunteers. I mean, we entered the convention with right at about 1,000 of those delegates were already declared TNM supporters, plus all the ones there that we had not identified previously. And what we wound up doing was shepherding language that came in from the county and SD conventions all the way through temporary platform to permanent platform, and it made it to the floor. And generally, once it gets past the floor and gets to an actual vote of the delegates, it is almost unheard of for a platform plank to go down. So we're expecting the official results announcement any day now. But the bottom line is that now the Republican Party of Texas in its platform has not one, but two calls to give the people a vote on their independence. Now, I'm not entirely sure if Stephen wants me to do magic tricks at this point. I am not advised. Marcus, Kyle, do we want to do a barbershop quartet minus one person? What do we want to?
I could, we could do that, or I could just give you some accolades on how the Calexit movement views the success of Texit. We want to say, this is something I've said many times. Whenever one of us wins, we all win. I was talking to you about this before the show said. So one of the things I wanted to announce was that, you know, we're having this conference today, and then also today, there was news about Texas secession because of what you guys did in Texas. But in two of those articles, they had to mention Calexit because they were talking about a large secession movement, and because they had to talk about another large secession movement. But so because you got in the news, we got in the news. And I wanted to point out that that's proof of something that I said at the last conference almost a year ago, which is, you know, whenever any of us gets in the news and we seem reasonable or rational, despite the negative image, it raises the profile of all of us. You know, we're all seen as crazy, insane people. And so when one of us comes forward and looks reasonable, can talk in complete sentences, has some understanding of government, maybe a little bit understanding of American history, it destroys the narrative. And it breeds what you call suspension of disbelief. And that helps all of us. So we got in the news. People are talking about Calexit today because they're talking about Texit. We even made a graphic where it shows like the state of Texas leaving, and we took the state, we put cowboy boots on it, and it's walking away. And then we took a picture of California, and he's got a surfboard, and he's going, "Oh, we can do that?" And so we're putting that out there, and people love it. People love it. The other thing I wanted to say was, you were talking about how much trash talk you're getting from the mainstream media. I want to say congratulations.
I love it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Kyle can attest. You know, as we fought that fight for HB 1359, if I told him once, I told him a million times. The nastier they get, the more I love it. I mean, it just makes my day interesting.
Boy, you know, that is so true, because they won't even acknowledge what we do as conservatives, the liberal media, because they know that they could shut us down by just ignoring us. But when they don't ignore us, and especially on something this important, then you know it's really getting under their skin. And that's what it needs to be. But they're actually giving us, they're giving us the exposure that we wouldn't have before. And, you know, there's going to be people obviously that are just brainwashed, are going to believe them. But to get that information out, it just shows the rest of the country. It gives them hope that there are people that are standing up, because the liberal media doesn't want the country to know that there are patriots out there that are not going to give in to the government, that are not going to be sold out, that are not afraid and are not scared. And that's what these other people need to know throughout the country. And I'm so grateful, Marcus, for what you're doing in California. And, you know, it just seems here in Texas, as I said earlier, we fought for independence after the Revolutionary War. It became the United States. We fought again, you know, as Texans. And look how quickly they forget. And look how quickly people don't recognize, you know, what we had to go through to have what we have. And so this is not a new thing. You know, people think, oh boy, secession or leaving the Union or whatever it might be is such a far out idea. Well, we wouldn't be the United States without it. And we certainly wouldn't have been the Republic of Texas without it. And now we need to get back to being the Republic of Texas. That's all I can say.
Wanted to well, I'm sorry, Rabbi.
Was that?
Were you going to say something? I was going to make a comment to
Go ahead.
Kyle. Okay. I wanted to back up, Kyle, what you had said about the American spirit, and that there were people who were criticizing us and they must have forgotten their American spirit. It was the, I believe it was the Constitution of America. In the beginning lines, they said the point of the Constitution was to, quotes, build a more perfect union. What that means is that they already had a union and it kind of worked. They just said they wanted to try to build something even better. They did not say we had nothing and so we're going to start from scratch. What they said was we had something and it's okay, but because we think we can do better, that alone is our right to create a new constitution.
We never should have told him there was $1 million in donations because of his speech. I think that's what he said. Go ahead, Marcus.
Because the Constitution by the first Americans said to build a more perfect union, what they were saying was they already had a union with England and they had a lot of rights as Englishmen, but they felt they could get even more rights. And so they had a more perfect union. How dare people tell us that we don't have the right to explore a better union for our governments when that is exactly the animus that motivated the first American founding fathers. It's literally in the Constitution. And so you're telling us you can't attempt to do better in a government. That's what the first Americans said. So if you're against that, you're against the first American spirit. It was because Englishmen had so many rights, according to historian Niall Ferguson, that Americans wanted even more rights. And it was because the only democracy in Europe at that time was the English Parliament that these Americans had the idea that they could even have democracy. And that comes from Francis Fukuyama, one of the top political theorists here in America. So keep doing it. We are the original American spirit. This is the American spirit to do this. And how dare anyone tell us that we don't have the right to discuss ideas and vote. I am constantly disgusted to see people say, how dare you file an initiative in Texas? How dare you vote? How dare you encourage people to vote? How dare you? How dare you discourage people to embrace democracy? You're going on and on as an American nation about the loss of democracy from foreign nations. How about the loss of democracy because you yourself? You're telling your own people you shouldn't vote? You shouldn't think about voting. You shouldn't believe in self-determination. You shouldn't believe you have the right to have those discussions. And yet at the same voice, you have the ability to go, well, look at these backwards countries that don't embrace democracy. Who are you fooling? No one. And I want to say congratulations to Mike Sylvia and Kyle Biederman and Daniel Miller. If they're telling you, I mean, let me put out the headline. New Hampshire's pushing for secession. Treason. Texas is pushing for secession. War. California is pushing for secession. Putin. Look at the, don't take my word for it. Look at the newspaper headlines, the way they're talking about Texas today, the way they talked about New Hampshire a couple months ago, and the way they talked about California 3 years ago. It is outright fear tactics. If you do this, it's going to be a giant war. If you do this, Vladimir Putin's going to show up tomorrow. If you do this, treason. All of you are going to be arrested and thrown in jail. They were all lies. They were all lies.
Hey, Marcus, don't you find it amusing that the same people who are decrying California and the Putin thing and, you know, Putin's invasion of Ukraine, that, I mean, you know, they're just railing about that. We're supposed to be super patriotic for Ukraine, are the exact same people who are still saying if Texas or California, New Hampshire leaves, it will mean war.
Yes.
Now, wait a minute. Wait. You know, well, look, no one's ever accused them of ideological consistency, have they?
No, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but America said that if you are attacking your own people in any capacity, you no longer have the right to own those people. We said that to the Serbs with Kosovo. We said that to Saddam with the Iraqis. We said that to Bashar al-Assad with the Kurds and the freedom fighters. So how come we can't say it to the Ukrainians when the UN itself said the Ukrainian government shelled some Russian territories? going by America's own precedent in the last 20 years and how it operated on the international stage, it's actually going against the legal precedent that established. So I can't agree with you more, Daniel. The American government says one thing and does another. That's why they're not a good or trusted partner.
Folks, I realize California and Texas represent about 80 million people, which is slightly larger than New Hampshire. But since New Hampshire is hosting this, I want to bring this back to New Hampshire. One of the things I'm wondering about is I see maybe 100 people here today in a country where I think 18% say we're on the right track, something like that.
So
Where is everybody? Why aren't there thousands and thousands of people here? Is it because they think we are on the right track? Is it because they think that if we vote for a couple more Republicans and a bigger freedom caucus in the New Hampshire legislature, that something is going to change stripes? Is it because they think we need to send one more congressman to Washington or one more Republican president? Is it because they think that we're going to be attacked like Eastern Ukraine? But that's what I really want to know. So what we're going to do now is, last year we did not have a lot of time for questions. We're going to open up for the next hour or so for questions. Please try to keep your questions as short as possible. If you want to direct them to anything specific, fine. If not, I'll be happy to direct. So if anybody has questions, please head over to the mic. And specifically, if you have reasons why this is a really dumb idea.
Could I do a quick plug while we're waiting for the first question?
sure.
I just want to say thank you to the newly elected CEO of Yes California, Jason Wright, the newly elected Vice President, Rabbi Stephen Axelman, and the President myself for getting Yes California to come here. Yes California is in contact with about 80,000 Californians, 40,000 on Facebook, 20,000 on Twitter, and about another 30,000 on email. We are going to be hosting the only online certification in secession, online courses in secession. We'll be the only one hosting it anywhere in America. That's coming soon. We're also going to have a non-fungible token physical coin for celebrating secession. We'll be the only ones providing that in all of America. We will also be filing an initiative for California secession right after the midterms, when we expect Republicans to take back control of the House and the Senate, and Californians to freak out like they did in 2016. We're filing a 501c4 to raise money for that. And we'll also be releasing our counter arguments against Calexit handbook in the next few months. And I wanted to point out something significant. You know, it wasn't since 1861 where you had multiple elected officials from multiple states having a conference about secession. What did we have today? Kyle Biederman, Mike Sylvia, 2 elected officials, 2 different states at a conference on secession. Tell me the last time since 1861 we've done that.
And
Well, I'm sure you have people who want to step in, so go ahead.
Well, there may be many possible benefits to secession. What do you foresee as some possible drawbacks?
Interesting question. Anyone? I have a few answers to that.
I'm sorry.
Possible drawbacks of secession.
Well, everyone will give you all the possible drawbacks, but they won't admit the possibilities that go along with the drawbacks. Yeah, the federal government's going to come in with weapons and take us back. We can't leave. We are Vietnam's wife, and we are not allowed to leave. There's all kinds of drawbacks that are put out there. We have lots of entanglements with the federal government, Social Security, and all the benefits. The roads, my goodness, the roads. Lots of problems to overcome, but you can't solve any of those problems until you have a discussion. And we're opening up the discussion, and we'll explore those things. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, as far as the drawbacks, the things I hear most commonly is that the economy of the federal government, being in a union, is what allows us to be so prosperous. And to an extent, that's true, certainly in a way. We, as libertarians and voluntarists here, I know we're all pretty smart, philosophical, decent economists. We understand specialization, free trade, and everyone specializes in something, and what makes us all prosperous is that we can all specialize and trade with others what they specialize in as far as products and services. Now, if we do secede from the union, when we secede, the federal government may have an embargo or some kind of tariffs or some kind of blockade. I've explained it in a few of my books and speeches and articles why I don't think that's the case. But worst case scenario, if they totally blockade us, it would be an active war, and then we would have a hot war, unfortunately. But we'd still survive. We have enough farms and food and stuff and everything else here. We'd survive. We wouldn't be super duper wealthy, but we'd survive. Worst comes to worst. But that's, I think, the biggest potential drawback.
I'm curious if anybody has a calculator. I've been sitting here for 41 minutes since all you came. How much more debt has the United States federal government taken on in those 41 minutes? So when they talk to us about the economy and how we're going to survive, that's what I say. I want to recognize this gentleman who's about to ask a question. He's wearing a hat that has one of my favorite slogans on it. I thank Carla Garrett. It's the first time I heard it was from her. It says, "Make America States Again." So, go ahead, sir.
Given all the reasons people come up with why a state doing it against some, what do you think the chances are? How do you think the chances are better if you do it, or does it matter?
Are you saying if more than one state tries to do it at a time, is what you're saying?
Yeah, is there a certain number?
So I will tell you the reason I got out of bed this morning, and the reason I do what I do is I love New Hampshire, even though I don't get to live here. The power in having a libertarian state, a conservative state, and a left-wing liberal state, all working for the same thing, as far as I'm concerned, makes it almost impossible for anyone to argue against secession. It's not coming from the wacko right. It's not coming from the wacko left. It's not coming from you crazy pot-smoking libertarians here in New Hampshire. Everybody wants this. That's number one. Number two, like I said, I love New Hampshire, but California and Texas are the two largest states in the union. They represent, I believe, close to 80 million people, and they have a whopping amount of power. Dan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's, and you know me, I like to cut to the chase. Here's the bottom line. When you're talking from a strategic standpoint about having multiple states, sure, there is a strategic advantage to having multiple states spinning up, seeking their self-determination. But at the end of the day, the real benefit here is self-determination itself. Look, if our state was the only state going after this, I wouldn't care what anybody else said. I mean, it wouldn't matter what was happening in the rest of the world. The rest of the world could be marching toward a global super state, and independence would still be the right course of action for our state. And the fact that there are multiple states in the United States that are seeking this out, I think it tells the tale that, you know, we're in a dysfunctional and broken political and economic union, and it's long past time that we have the right of self-determination. We believe that the government that we have right now is not a government of our choosing, and it's a violation of the fundamental right of self-government, self-determination for it to be the case. But I'll just sort of dovetail into the previous question about what are the drawbacks. You know, this goes to the question that I ask all the time, and you guys probably have heard me say it time and time again ad nauseum till you're sick of it, but I'm going to lay it down again. Here's the thing. If your state right now were already a self-governing independent nation among nations, it had control over its own immigration and border policy, it had its own currency, its own military, its own embassies and passports, everything that 200 other self-governing independent nations around the world had. And instead of talking about exiting, we were talking about whether or not your state should join the union. Knowing everything you know about the federal government right now, would you vote today to join the union? And if your answer is no, then who cares what the potential disadvantages are, right? It means that the situation that you're in is untenable, because if you wouldn't go there, you don't need to be there now.
Okay, yeah, next.
I have a few questions. My first question is, if New Hampshire becomes its own country, wouldn't it gain powers that federal government has, such as a military and power to print currency? Wouldn't it then gain some corruption that's caused by the excuse of national security to do everything they want to do, and the ability to print money and real currency and fund all their projects? That's my first question. My second question is, if we didn't fund independent agent, what would be like many of those agents who are bothered by the CIA, trying to control them, trying to. And is that something, how would you do that?
Okay, I love your question. I'm curious if we enter into a dialogue at one point, what your alternative is, because I love your question. As far as the first question, I think about it a lot. What's to prevent New Hampshire from becoming another United States? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. The difference is the wonderful, wonderful thing that you guys are so lucky. Look at Mike Sylvia here. How many people don't know Mike Sylvia? How hard is it to go and talk to Mike Sylvia? How often do you see him on the street? I live in New York State. Do you know it's a celebration if once a year you lay eye on a state representative? And trust me, you don't come close to them. You do not ask them questions. If you see them, I was recently speaking at a Memorial Day function. They're up on the dais. They come in with their bodyguards. They leave with their bodyguards. And anything besides, hi, I love you, you're the greatest thing since Swiss cheese, they run away. So you have actual contact with your representatives. If New Hampshire starts to go south, they answer to you very, very directly, which is, with all due respect to Texas and California, you are in the absolute best position to control your governments. I hope that partially answers it, and I hope you come back and argue the other part with us later. Will the CIA undermine an independent country? I think that's a great question.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Kyle, where are your bodyguards?
You know,
New York, not Texas.
I
Well, you
didn't
know-
know that was an option.
you know, there's some truth to that, but you know, it all depends on all I can say is I'm very available to my constituents. Not all representatives are. So what you're saying, Stephen, there is a lot of truth to that. But it still comes down to anybody that's a naysayer and has all these questions about why, they don't even have a question why. They tell you it won't work. It's not a question of Social Security or the military, or is the federal government going to attack us, or are they going to take our stuff? They tell us that's what's going to happen. They have
Mr.
no
Biederman,
idea.
can I ask you a question? How many
Yes.
people do you represent?
200,000.
Mike Sylvia, how many people do you represent?
Approximately 3,400.
Get it? That's why New Hampshire is the best state to declare independence.
Hey, I would love to run in New Hampshire. My goodness, trying to
Now, by the way, I'm not going to ask you
trying
how
to
much
knock
you
on
get
doors
paid.
for 200,000 is a lot.
I could ask you how much you get paid. It's up to you, but I can tell you what they get paid up here. I believe it's $100 a year.
We get $600 a month.
For how many months?
12 months. A
Oh,
year.
okay, for every month. Okay.
Wow.
But to the
So I
question,
pay-
which was a great question, why won't we become like the United States? New Hampshire won't, because it's so small and the government is so responsive. And not to mention your wonderful governor, but if he didn't have his eyes on Washington, I think you'd have a very different governor. Okay, next question, please.
Hi, I'm Curtis. I've serving in Illinois, Army National Guard, and we're kind of transferring here in Hampshire now that I'm a resident of Mexico. If or when such happens, would the current National Guard Council just be directly stated to be the military of Hampshire, or would there be some other movement or conversion process from one to the other? Or option three, a completely brand new military around it, how that conversion works? Thank you.
All right, so as I understand, National Guard was intended to be the state organized militia in a new formatted package. And part of that was to avoid having the federal government take everybody off the service like they've done in recent years, in Iraq and beyond. I was in the National Guard when I was a young man, and
Was that last week or 2 weeks ago?
that was back in '76 through '84. But there was no chance at that time that the boy or whatever even thought about it. It was just the weekend warrior routine, and we were there to protect the state. So if the federal government can drag the National Guard off to a foreign adventure, then we are left with nothing. So I think that with the independent New Hampshire, the National Guard has become our state militia.
Daniel, I want to go to you for a second real quick and then Marcus, because Daniel, you have a different status down there with the military, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't catch the entirety of the question, but here.
The question was, what would happen to the National Guard if they became independent? But you have a different situation in Texas.
Yeah, and Kyle can definitely talk about this, particularly from a policy standpoint too. But just to tee it up for him, Texas has down here what's called the Texas Military Department, which is effectively a 3-branch military made up of the Air National Guard, the Army National Guard, and the Texas State Guard. And so, you know, as we talk about Texas moving forward, we always talk about that can serve as a foundation or backbone to build up off of. But Kyle could talk more about that from a policy standpoint.
Yeah, real quickly, anything about Texit, you don't secede and then try to figure it out. You vote to secede, you vote to start the process, and then these questions get answered when government officials are on the under fire to have to give you the answers. Right now, they don't have to tell you anything. There's no transparency, and we have no leverage, zero leverage right now. So people can say whatever they want. The government can say whatever they want. As soon as we have a vote by the people, we now have leverage to actually start debating, start having a dialogue, and get these questions answered with leverage, not just opinions out of nowhere. And that's what's so important. And in Texas, I speak to we have military here from the federal government. I talk to them all the time. If we secede, they're joining Texas. They're not going to stay in the United States. They want to join Texas. So there are so many things that'll happen, but we've got to have a vote that gives us leverage, and it forces our state governments to actually answer the questions with facts and not just hide under a rock and then say it couldn't happen.
Marcus, any quick comment from California?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, they did a study on secession. I believe it was a Canadian university. It was the only one that looked at it, overviewed by the London School of Economics. And they said that peaceful secession movements are negotiated within 3 to 5 years, max. Because like Kyle Biederman said, once you have that vote, politicians have to get reelected or they become unelected. So once the vote's out there, they have to deliver for the public or the public removes them from office. We saw this with Brexit. Cameron did not move on Brexit, so he was gone. Then they got Theresa May. Theresa May was the first person to actually seriously talk about how to implement Brexit, and even she did not take it seriously enough, so she too was removed. So we've literally seen what Kyle's talking about in action in a real-life secession movement in recent times. As far as the military question goes, I do want to say California is a similar situation to Texas. There's the National Guard, which can be federalized and sent to Iraq. That happened during the Iraq War, in which case we had our force burned down because we didn't have enough people to handle our emergencies here. So Californians died, property was burned, force burned down, our climate change goals was important to us, lost because America wanted to go fight a war in Iraq and they took our National Guard troops. Since then, the California government has been putting more money into the California State Military Reserve and the California State Naval Militia. That is a Navy and an Army that cannot be federalized ever and are under the exclusive control of the governor. When we're talking about military security, the National Guard of California gets about 50% state funding, 50% federal. That's the way it works for every state. If you look at an economy like the size of Texas or like the size of California, if Texas or California just said, we're going to pull out our National Guard funding and we're going to pull out our federal military funding, you're looking at the world's 5th and 7th largest militaries overnight. So that's the military. Nobody really realizes that. We already have the body of a separate military. You just redirect funding. We're like a European power tomorrow. And as far as America invading us, why? So if you look at the articles about Texas secession, look at the comments. Yes, you're going to see experts saying, oh, America doesn't want this and they could never do it. And I'm a law professor and I'm a professor and I'm a professor and I'm a lawyer and I'm a professor. Great. Now read the comments. Do average Americans share their opinion? I can tell you, I read the comments today. There's a lot of liberals saying, get the hell out, Texas, and happy to see you go. So is that really the will of the American people, these quote unquote experts that we see interviewed in the news? You know, because whenever you see them, they never interview us. Like on the articles on Texas secession, I didn't see anybody from the Texas independence movement. And on the articles on Calexit, they never interviewed us, right? But then they have these experts saying how it's going to go, but they somehow managed to never actually interview the people who are behind the movements. And you only get to hear these experts who say, oh, it'll never happen and can't ever happen. Why are we listening to them? And why do we believe them? And why can't they interview the actual independence movements? And why do we consider that fair journalism? And maybe they're completely lying to you, misleading you, not letting you hear the voices from the actual independence movements because they know the votes are out there. And if Texas seceded tomorrow, what they're afraid of is half of America is going to go, fine. Are you ready to launch a war and go and get killed in order to bring Texas back to America? Hell no. That's what I can tell you. That's what liberals are going to say. Hey, liberals, you want your son and daughters to get blown up and shot up so we can make sure Texas gets dragged back into America, kicking and screaming. I don't know any liberal that wants their children to die to make sure that you all have to stay in America. So I would say, look at the
If that's not love, what is? Go, Alan.
Yeah, there's one more question. Real quick, that's such an important issue. That's one of the reasons we need to split apart the Union and divorce DC. They have taken over state national guards. Go back and look at the Constitution, look at history. National guards were the state's military. Around 100 years ago, I believe Ted Roosevelt took it over and said, yeah, you can say, but the DC, DC can deploy you anywhere and we own you. And now, like everyone knows, National Guard is just 99.9% part of the U.S. military. We just call it National Guard, and we say you belong to one state, kind of. They've taken over that sovereignty. That's one reason we have to split up as well. All right, thank you. Next question.
I believe that there is a movement to have state legislatures pass legislation that prohibit the governor from approving National Guard to be used as a federal military. And I believe you can go to defendtheguard.com to look more into that. That's not my question. So I recommend everyone in
Could you just repeat, you said a website that?
Yes, defendtheguard.com.
Okay, cool, thank you. Keep going.
So in the Western canon of literature, there are a lot of great thoughts on just revolution and just rebellion. And they seem to suggest that you have to exhaust all of your alternatives before you have a revolution. So is that a requirement? If not, why not? And how have you done that?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that question real quick. We've been exhausting our resources every day for the last 45 years. So
I think that that's a good and proper way to go about things, and certainly there's been a lot done to push back against the federal government, various issues. Can there be more? Possibly, and that might be one of our next steps, is to make sure that we have covered all of those spaces.
Yeah, just read the whereases in the Declaration of Independence. Do we have to do more? That's a fantastic question. Okay, next question. Oh, you have a second question, go.
Yeah, so if secession happens, what is the probability that will be under some kind of economic warfare with the United States and for hot military conflict? And if that is the case, is the secession still justified? Can you justify the cost of war, 10-year war against the United States of America?
I'm gonna let somebody else answer that, but I hear the abused wife saying, can I justify being killed, so I should stay. Daniel, you wanted to say something? Did you hear the question?
He's muted.
You're muted again.
Marcus had his hand up.
Oh, Marcus, go.
I'll go super fast. So war would only happen if Texas or California seceded and a majority of Americans said, oh no, we want them back. Why is that the theory we're always thinking of rather than the theory of half of Americans say, fine, I don't want them back? Like we always go to, you're going to leave and immediately people are going to want you back. Do you know the level of polarization in America? I mean, have you seen the surveys? The division between the left and the right is higher, is close to 1861. There's something called the big sort, where conservatives and liberals are moving to different counties away from each other. Americans who would want to keep each other together are already separating from each other. It's at 70%, the big sort, where liberals and conservatives since 1977 have already moved away from areas they don't politically like and into areas that they like. We have more landslide counties where 80% of everyone in the county votes one way than anywhere in American history. So where is this concept that we're not already split, we're not already neatly divided, there isn't already bastions of left and red, and that we want to come together? And again, if you look at the comments on Calexit, I mean, my God, there's tons of conservatives saying get lost. And if you look at the comments on Texas secession today, my God, there's tons of liberals saying get lost. So why do we entertain this idea that people are going to want it back? Secondly, if you left, we're going to be leaving on friendly terms. Nobody's saying get your guns and leave. The Calexit movement and the Texas movement are dedicated to peaceful secession. We have never said, where's my AK-47 and that's my way out. So if we're pursuing legal negotiated secession, why would we need a war if it was negotiated with America? And third, when they talk about trade war, why? America went with NAFTA. Do you guys know the trajectory of the entire world economy? It's towards more international trade and more trade deals. If California and Texas were independent, we would have trade deals with America. That is highly more likely than the opposite when you look at the last, everything that's happened in the world since 1990.
Daniel, anything with that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just to echo what you said before we threw to Marcus, which is, I mean, look, this is a pretty straightforward proposition, right? When the whoever asked the question asked if they engaged in, and I thought I heard economic warfare, would it still be justified? And look, the threat of economic warfare is used by abusers all the time to prevent the abused from leaving the situation. But again, it goes to what we said a moment ago, which is, look, it doesn't matter, right? They won't do it. And there's a million reasons why they won't engage in economic warfare, because let's face it, I don't know that the federal economy could take any stress. It is best for them when the people of Texas or California, New Hampshire vote, not if, but when we vote to withdraw. It is in the best interest economically of the remaining states, under the guise of the federal government, to come to the table and negotiate out trade deals, right? Whether they're free trade agreements, whatever they are, because the economies of the individual states are far more resilient than the federal economy as a whole. And look, if you want to know, go to your gas pump right now, or go to the grocery store and look at inflation and look at where they can't find the off switch for the printing press, right? So, you know, the fact of the matter is that there is a pragmatic approach. But honestly, if they decide to engage in some sort of economic warfare, not only will the world likely retaliate because of the hypocrisy of 80 years of American foreign policy, but you know, the fact that those other states will suffer probably more so than any of the individual states that would leave.
Yep.
Sir?
I have something.
Oh,
Kyle?
Can I just say one more thing? You know, these people that say that, they're the ones that say, oh, we love the United States. The United States is so great. Well, if they love the United States so much, they've got the United States. Just stay in the United States and let us leave. You know, it doesn't make sense that they would ever come after us, because they need us for trade. They need us for energy. Well, I'm talking about Texas. They need us as a trade partner, just like they have a trade partner in Mexico. They don't attack Mexico because they're not part of the United States. They don't attack Canada. You know, why would they attack Texas or California if they're not part of the United States? If they love the United States that much, they have no problem with us leaving, but they just want to work with us. And so, you know, again, these are the things that everybody loves to talk in the minutia about. What if, with no strategy, no opportunity for debate, and no leverage to talk to our government. So you can just blow smoke all you want. But I tell you, people need to have the right to vote. And then we need to sit down and talk and figure these things out. Hey, we could be wrong. Daniel and I could be wrong. Marcus could be wrong. How do you know if we don't have the debate? You know, how do you know if we don't sit down at the table with the people that have all the power and force them to have this discussion with the American people?
Next.
If I could real quick.
Yeah, a lot of people in the country are say it's all secession and it's made inclusion. I also think you can more paint a picture of what secession look like with more specifics, like they were given their lands,
Excellent question. So for those who didn't hear, he asked what would happen specifically, to talk specifics with various systems and questions. What would happen to federal lands, our economy, our education infrastructure, all the different systems in the state once we leave union? Great question. Legislators asked it during the last session. That's why I wrote a little booklet called Articles of Secession where I answer all the questions. You know, I have the booklet here for sale and everything. And it's also online for free on libertyblock.com, all the articles. So I've written like 10, 12 articles, answer these questions. Good news, we'd all be fine. We wouldn't all die, we wouldn't all starve. Everything would work better than before.
I think what Mr. Biederman answered to the last question answers that first you vote to secede, and then the equation changes and you negotiate all of those details. So I hope that answers that somewhat. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm not perfectly bilingual. I'm from Quebec. I natively speak French, so sorry for my expert English speaking word. So in Quebec, we have two referendums about the Quebec sovereignty, and the two times they have been rejected by say the no has win over the yes. And there's a lot of people that say in 2022, and it continues today and forever, that the two referendum was been stolen by the Canadian government by trafficking the result. So all libertarian a New Hampshire referendum on the sovereignty will be have a perfect electoral result and without fraud, without stolen, and very legit way.
I think what he was asking is, do we have faith in our electoral system, that there's electoral integrity? I can't speak to the rest of them. I'll say personally, I never trusted elections, never have, never will, especially after the 2020 election, which I think there were tremendous issues with Biden being elected. Yeah, I mean, Mike could probably speak more to voting in the legislature and the people on the ballot voting. We would need 2/3. The way we did it, we need 2/3, 67% to vote in favor of leaving. Do I trust the electoral process? Not really. We're working on making it a little bit less easy to cheat. But I'm curious if Mike has thoughts on election integrity.
Right, that's a big issue, since the last election, and it's always going to be the government counting votes. So it's always something that slides by. People, it takes people to get out, watch the polls, watch the shenanigans and go on. But you know, the public is not interested, or it's too much of an investment to go and be an observer and watch these things closely. I think that we've gotten away from the smaller precincts or wards where it's more in control and you don't have everything going off and being glued together. You've got various, some of the states have electronic voting machines where you touch the screen and hope that whatever gets registered somewhere is actually what you did. These things can't be trusted. There's a big push on in New Hampshire called the Resolve, which intends to have people doing write-in ballots. With the write-ins, they get rejected from the machines. They can't count because it doesn't know what the person is that's being voted for. So we're going to see a bit of an experiment in that realm this year in New Hampshire by a big write-in campaign. No, my name's going to be listed on the ballot, but they can look at that and say, no, I don't want the one that the government says is Mike Soldier. I'm going to go down and get a write-in and write in Mike Soldier.
That forces.
And when you do that, it takes that ballot out, it has to be hand counted so that they can see whether it was Mike Sylvia or Mickey Mouse that got the vote. Now, it doesn't guarantee you that they're going to accurately process those, but it'll be an interesting thing to see how that works here in New Hampshire. We have better, the machine system is still possibly questionable, but we do have in New Hampshire a lot of contested races that come down to 1 or 2 votes. And there are recounts, and I've been down to sit and watch as they go through and we count the ballots and make sure everything is right. They're actually pretty accurate. So far, but and of course that doesn't really I don't think they've ever looked at like federal races. Those are generally smaller, or possibly state senate races.
Yeah, and one big problem we have the last referendum in Quebec to vote is we have the obligation to show an ID card to vote, and some people who live outside Quebec but live in Canada have shown their ID card and vote the referendum. So that's maybe not solving the case like some people think, but there may be some better option to guarantee that people really vote and vote.
It's a system that needs to be closely watched.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, secession is difficult. Couldn't state notification efforts be a more effective way of achieving independence and resources?
Yeah, excellent question. We've heard this a lot, so we'll have questions yet. For those who are familiar, nullification is the practice of a state government nullifying federal law, kind of blocking and refusing to enforce that federal law. Big examples that we're familiar with is cannabis that 30, 40 states have done now. It's federally illegal, but 30, 40 states have legalized. And immigration, there are probably a few dozen immigration sanctuary states like California that Marcus is probably speaking to. So I like nullification because it blocks federal laws and it works sometimes for cannabis and for things like immigration, but also I think around a dozen states from the right side of the spectrum have nullified some federal gun laws, which is great. Missouri and I think Kansas and Wyoming have great nullification of some federal gun laws. But here's the issue. The federal government, like I explained this on books, the federal government gives grants to every state. Every state, like average state, is around half the budget comes from federal government, which is really federal taxpayers from the big collective, and they give back half the grants. If we nullify laws and piss them off enough, eventually in a year or two they're going to refuse to give back the money, which Trump threatened and they threaten all the time. Refuse to give us back the money that they've made us dependent upon, taxpayer money, if we keep nullifying their laws. So if eventually when push comes to shove and we're nullifying their laws and they threaten to cut the funding to us, we're either going to have to bend and break and give it the will of that down to history again and say, okay, we'll nullify the laws and take nullification, or full on secession. And by that I mean we're already done with step 1, nullification. Step 2 is they refuse to send the grant this way. Step 3 is we refuse to send the taxes to them in the first place because it's all federal taxes, and that's secession. So I love nullification, but not just because I love nullification, also because it is the necessary step 1 in the 3-step process of secession. So I hope that answers that. But next, Phil.
So in public discourse right now, there's a lot of talk about ending the filibuster, expanding the Supreme Court, ending the Electoral College, gerrymandering, things that they'll do to have full control over every state. With Calexit and Texit, wouldn't that be a good sell to go, once Texas leaves, we'll have a special Democratic the Electoral College. Once California leaves, we'll have a special Republican Union. At least that cracks the first blow to get us.
I try telling people that. I tell Republicans if California leaves, you Republicans will have the House and Senate forever. I tell Democrats if Texas leaves, you'll win every election nationally forever. I think it has some effect. It hasn't obviously worked 100%, but I think that is a great tactic. I'm curious what Daniel and Marcus think of that tactic. I know Marcus has spoken about it for a while. Did you guys hear the question?
Could you repeat it? We don't
Have you
formulate the
told-
questions clearly.
Yeah, sorry, have you told conservatives, if California leaves, it'll be great, because conservatives will win every election in the House and Senate and president forever. And saying today, they'll be the opposite. The progressives should support Texit because it means that the Democrats, the progressive socialists, will run the country forever. So is that a good tactic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. We have done that. We have said if California was gone, you'd have an easier time winning races. And there is a lot of truth to that, especially at the House and Senate level, not at necessarily the Electoral College level. The Electoral College seats would be taken away and then redistributed to the next 7 most populous states, which if you look at them are roughly half conservative, half liberal. So with the presidential elections, they go back to being a wash, but with Senate and House, yes.
Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tactic. It's one that we don't contend with too much because, I mean, obviously for us, we're focused on the folks here in Texas and trying to sell them and help them understand why Texas independence is important. But I think the question really gets down to sort of the fundamental issue that's driving so much of this is the fact that no matter what the partisan divide is in your state, what part of the spectrum they're on, if such a thing even exists, it's the fact that control over the federal government is the thing that they are fighting for, because the federal government has grown so large, so overreaching, and so powerful that they can force anything on any state regardless, right? So it's, the federal elections have turned into a ridiculous Punch and Judy show where one side beats the crap out of the other side every 2 to 4 years for control over that, Mordor on the Potomac, right? Or Washington District of Criminals, whichever you prefer, so that they can in turn lord that power over the side that doesn't believe like they do. And what we're doing is we're coming at it from a different way, that all of us, whether you're on the panel here, Marcus in California, even AIP in Alaska, all these, we're coming at it from a completely different thing, which is saying we don't need to fight each other for control of that ridiculous nonsense in Washington, D.C. Let California govern California, let New Hampshire govern New Hampshire, let Texas govern Texas, on and on and on. And who cares? Like, I don't, with Texas independence, I don't care how you guys vote because it's your business. With Texas independence, I don't care what happens with the policies in California, because that's their business, and vice versa. And so for us, when people want to, like we're seeing in all these, media outlets, they want to portray this as some flashpoint for violence, or they want to talk about how contentious this is. Contentious is forcing us to stay in a union when we are being we've got policies being shoved down our throats that we do not want. And in turn, when we're going and fighting for the levers of power in Washington, D.C. to do likewise to others. That's the contention. That's what's driving and motivating these movements. And frankly, it's what makes us the white hats. It's what makes us the good guys. We're looking at a peaceful way that we can live with one another without having to govern one another.
I got to throw in the main thing that we say in Calexit to get support is that, and this is true, those of us in Calexit who are working with you don't want to control you, but the rest of California does. So liberals absolutely want control of the federal government to push laws that you don't like on you because they feel that you're dumb and backwards. And if they force these laws on you, eventually one day you'll realize that they were right and you'll come around to their thinking. That's literally what they think. I live in California. I was born and raised in liberal families. I know a lot of liberals. This is how they talk. The only ones of us who don't want to do this are the ones who realize that's how you get people shot. You keep pushing laws on them they don't want, and things get real bad. So there's 2 groups of California. Those of us who recognize we're going to a bad place, and the rest of them who watch MSNBC and CNN and think, oh, those poor backwards red state people, if only we can just win the next election, force our laws on them, and then they'll do what we tell them to do, and in 10 years, maybe they'll get it because they're so stupid and backwards. How many of you saw the interview with the Twitter execs by Project Veritas when Elon Musk was going to take over Twitter? They literally admitted it. So get rid of California conservatives, or Californians will be coming to take over your laws and force them on you. I promise you.
Yeah, so we have no more questions here. I guess we can all do a conclusion. Whoever wants to go first, unless Matt has anything else you guys want to say.
Hey guys, I'm back. Everything's good. We get knocked down, get back up again. The thing that secession is gonna be easy, it's not. It means to take some time. It's not a revolution, right? We're not trying to do anything crazy, but it's gonna be a lot of hearts and minds to win over. So very excited to be on this adventure with everyone up here. A little bit more about the PAC, so everyone understands how it works. So it's kind of like a heart that pumps, and funding comes in, and then funding goes out for the candidates that we want to have. That's support secession. It's a single issue PAC. So chances are, and we know that we had 13 voted for it this past spring, and there are many more who just need a little bit more public positive peer pressure to do the same thing. So all the candidates that we want to support are probably candidates that are already in the New Hampshire legislature that you know already. So if you can go to our website, you can donate to the PAC. You can also send us a message as well if you want to refer someone who we should be going to look at. But we do have a very clear idea of who we will be supporting in that state house, which is great.
Sure. All right, in conclusion, speaking for the FNHI, I should take off my Liberty Block hat and put on the FNHI hat, literally. Go to nhindependence.org and you'll find out more info. You can sign up to our newsletter. Please go there and sign up. There's going to be a pop-up email newsletter. We're going to email once in a long while, be in spam. Also, go visit me at RB1 and you'll see a little sign-up sheet where you can write your name with a pen and paper if you want to go to old school, and we'll try to keep you informed. There's also a place there to donate. We would love donations, obviously, that's how we survive. And like I said, we're doing the poll and I got a lot of questions about would others want to kill you? And that's a great question. That's why we're asking it on the survey that we're doing. We're going to ask, we have like 15 questions, and we ask everything about independence. Do you support independence? How much do you love DC politicians? We expect that one to be about 0% love politicians in DC. We ask, do you trust your people to conquer more state legislature or capital, DC politicians? We know where that one's going to go as well. But one of the questions is, if one state decides to leave the union, to separate, would you support the federal government using military action to kill them and bring them back by force? Would you support economic embargo or blockade, or would you let them leave and not use violence to kill them? So those are the three options to that answer, I believe. So in a few weeks, again, you'll see on independence.org, Liberty Block, the PAC will all be telling you the results of the survey very soon. So go to the site, sign up, please donate. The other ways we can help just encourage legislators like Mike Sylvia and the others here to keep being strong. Encourage other legislators to support independence to vote yes for it. And talk to your friends about it. Talk to your friends about independence and keep normalizing it. I've been talking to people, and guess what? I think the majority of people that are random people who are not libertarian activists. I talked to a bartender a few months ago, and I said, some young girl, do you support independence? Would you vote to leave the union? She's like, yes, I would vote. If there was a vote to leave the union, I would vote yes. This is random people, and plenty of people at work are the same way. So let's just keep talking about it, and we're going to win. Within a few years, we're going to be winning this thing. So thank you.
New Hampshire is #1. We're leading, not them. We're leading. So we're going to show the world what we know.
Amen. Marcus, parting words?
The international precedent for secession is 52%. That's what Brexit qualified to leave, and it's internationally recognized. Here in California in February 2017, we had 32% say they wanted to secede, but we actually had 47.5 say they were open to secession. That puts us about 5 points short of the Brexit threshold for successful secession. The media will never bring that up, that we hit 47.5 open to secession. They'll lie to you and say 32% were for it and 2/3 were against it. That's a total lie. 1/3 for, 47.5 open to it. We're that close. I hear that the secession numbers in Texas are over 40%. This is highly likely to happen, folks, in one of these two states in the near future. So whether it's Texas or California, I think you're looking at the future right here. I think America's falling apart. It's in disunion. You can see that. And we're going to have to hit that release valve. I think a lot of people get that. And maybe some calmer heads, not at the federal level, but at the state level will rise. And I think you're literally looking at one of the first 2 future nations on the world platform right now. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Daniel?
Sure. Look, here's what I want to, I guess, leave everyone with, because this is the thing that really motivates us, that drives us, and it's not Texas specific, right? But it does find itself rooted in our governing document here in Texas. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution says that all political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit, and that the people have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. Okay, that is a statement of the fundamental and inalienable right of self-government and self-determination. And when we begin to look at our rights and think of all the rights that we think of as inalienable, right? The right to keep and bear arms, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all of those, understand that the right of self-government, the right of self-determination is just as inalienable. And we have to fight just as hard for those because we have to treat it as an inalienable right. And so all of us here, you know, whether you're watching this panel, you're considering the idea of independence, whether you're against, whether you're for, at a minimum, we should agree that the people have an absolute right to vote on the issue. Because at the moment that right is denied, then it's just it is akin to showing up to your house, kicking in your door, taking your guns, or putting a muzzle on you, or forcing you to go to a specific church and participate in a specific religion, whatever those inalienable rights are. So the bottom line, I think, for everyone here, for what we're doing in Texas, for what you're doing in New Hampshire, for what you're doing in California, for what's happening in Alaska, in Puerto Rico, and the northern states of Mexico, and all of these other places around the world that are embracing their right of self-determination, my message to all of you here is, don't ever give up. It took Scotland 800 years to get to a referendum. 800 years, right? We're all practically wet behind the ears babies at this panel. So we have a long road to go, but the fact of the matter is that we are closer than we have ever been. Because I know in my heart of hearts, regardless of what poll numbers say, and the poll numbers are super favorable for us, but regardless of that, I know this: if Texit goes on a ballot tomorrow, it wins. And it doesn't win by a little, it wins by a lot. We are going to smoke these guys. We're going to beat the crap out of them, because we can sell independence, we can sell freedom, and we know for damn sure they cannot sell Washington, D.C. So guys, my message from Texas to every one of you, let's go win.
So I just like to point out that we are here at PORCFEST, and the Free State Project has been moving people here to New Hampshire for 2 decades. We've got a lot of folks that came from California and got motivated here, where your activities can really make a difference. I moved here, never intended to be in the legislature, but this is the kind of state that you get swept into office pretty easily, and you can make a difference. And even the folks out in the streets, the regular folks, that's the big thing. When we have hearings in Concord, you can come, show up, fill a room like we did with CR 32. And you will be heard. You definitely will be heard. That's the beauty of this state, where we really do get the people's voice right down into Concord, and you can't ignore it. When you have people come and fill a room and have their say, they can vote against it. But even when that bill went to the floor of the House and they tried to table it, there were enough of us that said, no, let's have the debate. We forced the debate. The Democrats wanted to have the debate. They want to embarrass the Republicans in this particular case, but there were enough Republicans that said, no, we'll have the debate. And we'll let the people's voice be heard. And Matt Sensato made a great speech that day on the floor of the House, carrying our banner. Our voice was heard. They voted it down, disposed of it. But that was just round one. We've only just begun. So let's keep going. Move to New Hampshire, help us fight it, and let's go with it.
One last announcement to make. Our treasurer is here as well. Derek's in the audience today. Both Derek and I are veterans. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to thank Mike for everything, Matt for coming here today. I'm sorry? Mark Ward is here? Thank you very much, Mark. You're one of the great 13, right? I'm sorry? You could do a lot worse. Yeah, thank Mark for everything he does for this day. We'll be here all day. I want to thank the technical people. I believe your name is Alexi, without which there's no way in the world we could have done this. I want to thank Daniel and Marcus for showing up even on Zoom from across the country. And I do kind of leave with a question in my mind. We have a lot less people here at 4:30 than we did at 3 o'clock. I thank those of you who stayed, but I have to think about why those who left. Obviously, they're bored. Is it because they think it's a dumb idea? Is it because they think it can't happen? Is it because they're totally on board? I have no idea. But I know one thing, like Mike said before, they need a lot of support. Back them up on what they do. So there you go. Yeah. Stand up. Whoa. Stand up and show that to everybody.
NHX.us.
Yes, NHX.us and Hampshire Independent Spring Washington DC College.
Yeah, that's good.
There's also shirts here for those who are. Says it's
Oh,
not you.
yeah.
Right, and the president of FNHI's new license plate is NH Exit. Something we're very proud about. We'll stick around if anybody wants to argue with us for a little bit. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Bob. Daniel, love you guys. We'll be here next year in person.
Okay, we're out.
Yep,
Thank you
thanks,
so
guys.
much.
I pulled the plug. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay,
Thanks a million, guys.
You're the best.
it was awesome.
Adios, fellas.
Bye.